Markets away from all the noise up from your mountain perch. How does it look now? We did see a fairly strong resistance coming in at that 8,300 mark. Are we now likely to see lower lows than that 7,500, or do you think liquidity is good enough to give us some kind of a bottom?
I think it's very difficult to be too bullish or too bearish on the market right now. But, the moment you start leaning too much in one direction, you've got countervailing forces which come in. So right now, I know the earnings season has been quite bad, and it's difficult to pick out very positive straws from the earnings season over the last 1 week. And generally, we've probably come to the end of an emerging market rally or a risk rally that panned out in October. I think what had happened in the end of September is that everybody had gotten too bearish when the market went down to 76, 7,700 levels. I think a lot of the stress sectors like metals, real estate, etc. had got beaten up maybe more than they deserved to in the near term. And what we saw was a good pullback triggered off by the Fed's pause, which is what panned out into most emerging markets, panned out into most of the beaten down sectors. And I think that was the rally that we saw in the month of October. And I think it has come to an end now at around 8,300 on the Nifty. Now, whether we go back and stabilize in a range of, say, 7,800, 8,300 in the near term, or we go down lower to retest the lows that we made a few weeks back, that I think will take one step at a time. But looking at the earnings and the way things have panned out, I think it's quite difficult to become too bullish at this point in time. So yes, to answer your question, for the time being, I think 83, 8,400 is the top for this market. The lows we'll figure out, but I think there's a good chance that we will probably first go to 7,800, 7,900 and try and stabilize in that 4,500 band for the Nifty. But if earnings continue in the same vein as they have over the last 1 week, then it's not impossible that we go back and retest the September lows.
Udayan, so speaking of earnings, this quarter we've seen a fair amount of disappointment already, whether it's the likes of an Axis Bank or L&T, and these are all marquee names we're talking about. So what's the way forward? Should one keep the faith and stay investor, or is it actually time to step back?
I am not in the camp which is seeing a lot of green shoots in the earnings yet. You have to be very hopeful to say that what has come out of this earnings season is more positive than negative. Frankly, if you look at every sector, from infrastructure to consumers, even banking, the frontline IT pack, with the exception of the pharma pack, there too there have been a couple of glitches. I don't see too many sectors which have actually delivered the goods. In fact, I would be surprised if there are not more downgrades at the end of this week from the earnings calendar overall. And I think the Nifty and the Sensex earnings per share expectations might also have to be scaled back. And that is the problem with this market. You have these periodic tactical rallies because of global and liquidity factors, and then up comes an earnings season which reminds you that the economic change which the market is trying to price in periodically is just not happening. So you can be hopeful and bullish and say it will happen next quarter, it will certainly happen 2 quarters down the line. But what's happening really on the ground is that with every passing quarter you're having to push back that expectation, saying, oh gosh, 1 more quarter it did not happen, so maybe it will happen 2 quarters down the line. There's no problem with hoping. It's fine to be optimistic. But if you're realistic and if you're taking on board the numbers as they have come out, it's very difficult to be very optimistic at the end of this earnings season. And therefore, the Nifty is struggling to get anywhere close to the highs it made earlier in the year. Periodically in June, July, August, we heard a lot of people on the channel saying, be prepared for new highs once again this calendar. The Nifty has made a couple of attempts in that direction, but is faltering because earnings are just not giving it the support it requires to get back to that 9,000 level. Yes, domestic liquidity is keeping it supported at a certain level, around 76, 7,800 or 8,000, but I think upsides are limited by the fundamental backdrop.
Point taken, Udayan. Pleasure speaking with you as always. Thanks a lot for joining us. All right.